we have, it was a little vague exactly where we were going, but under the direction of a new city manager, we put together two strong balanced budgets. It's the city manager's responsibility to draw up the budget with the guidance of the members of the council. The first thing is that you have a balanced budget. You pay the essentials: police, fire, sanitation, protect people, pick up the garbage, make sure things are running as well as you can. Once you've got all that done, you use the surplus, and we've had a surplus the last couple of years. I believe the surplus should go to infrastructure repair. But the responsibility of a balanced budget is based upon the city manager's due diligence of putting everything together and the city council going through and tweaking it one way or another until you do get, finally, to a balanced budget. Thank you.
Ms. Pena, how do you create a balanced city budget which includes the costs of planned infrastructure improvements and erases the deferred maintenance costs?
Well, it is my understanding that in the United States of America, all cities and states are required to have a balanced budget and are automatically balanced by the state and federal law. Now, as far as our city budget, 70% of our budget is used for all of Castle Hill City employees, their salaries and benefits. The largest portion of that money is for our fire department and police department. And no one is interested in cutting any services or pay, including myself. If you're looking for someone interested in cutting pay or benefits to the firemen or the policemen, I am not that person. I come from a city and a county law enforcement family, and I know how difficult it is for them to have ends meet. So I believe that the current city manager is doing a wonderful job, and she is exercising her right to spend the money as she sees fit.
Thank you. Frank?
70%. I've heard that figure before. We're a city where we come and live, raise our family. What else would we do with our money? Now, the problem we have is that over all these years, we haven't taken care of the infrastructure, which goes to the meat of your question. And quite frankly, we can balance our budget. We've been balancing our budget, but we haven't been taking care of the other. And hopefully with the start of the $200,000 a year towards maybe some revenue ideas, we'll find out what VIA is going to do. We are going to need to do some development to bring in more taxes. We're going to need to look at, we may have to raise taxes. I don't know the options yet. All I'm said a while ago is we have pieces of the puzzle, and we need to put the puzzle together and present it to the citizens. I don't like, the council made a decision and realized that the citizens of the city wanted to vote on VIA, whether to keep it or not. And I think that's great. It's not our job up here to tell you that you're going to keep VIA whether you like it or not, or you're going to get rid of VIA whether you like it or not. But it seems like that message never really got over. It's in your hands. It's your choice. And I'd like to see the city be very open, transparent, and everything we try to do. But by the same token, please come to city council. Hold us accountable. Ask us questions. Like I said, I'll stay after here, and if you have any questions of me on anything that I may have said tonight, why I voted for this, why I didn't vote for that, I'll be glad to answer them. Back to the same thing, just do the best I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce?
Many of you may wonder why I'm reading so much tonight instead of just talking, and if you know me, I will talk for 5 minutes when they only give me 2. Currently, as a business owner who manages a business substantially larger, that has a budget substantially larger than our city budget, I know there's always a challenge in making sure that our projects we project the accurate expenses reflective of operations and assure that the funding is necessary to meet the requirements for a healthy operation. When the city prepares its budgets, staff determines what the expenses are projected for the city and the income the city must generate to meet these expenses, which must be approved by the council to spend the revenues raised. Our property tax revenues, sales tax revenues, fees, and other incomes comprise the revenue side of our city budget. While all of the variables are considered, a property tax rate is determined to balance our budget. Only in the case of extraordinary expenses that are unforeseen should a budget ever become unbalanced. My commitment has always been to provide the best city services that we choose to afford, and always strive to keep the city on the positive side of the budget that has been approved. We cannot control every aspect of the cost of operations. Inflation, external costs is a primary example. Our city currently has a proven formula for financial reserves with a surplus allocation clause to go into general street and drainage maintenance programs. This formula, approved by a former council and combined with the street maintenance sales tax fund approved many years ago by the voters, has been quite successful in giving the current council at least $2 million to spend in the last 2 years. Former councils chose to defer the street and drainage maintenance allocations in their budgets for many years, and the city administrations were allowed to operate street repairs on an unplanned, piecemeal basis, having limited approved funding. We're now living with the results. However, doing what has been done over the last 4 years, fiscally managing our city with extra emphasis on directing specific funding and resources for streets and drainage, is an excellent formula to begin the long-term correction of our maintenance problem. With the citizens' desire and agree to even a faster system of repair, our council should respond with a plan utilizing greater allocations, corresponding taxation, or a proposed voter-approved alternate form of funding.
Thank you. JR?
As Mr. Paul pointed out, it's pretty difficult to do something on the budget if the money's not there to do it. That being said, we need to work to come up with more strategic revenue streams. I'd like to applaud the PD, the police department, on that one. With their implementation of State Bill 631, we've been able to secure the perimeter of Castle Hills and patrol it. By patrolling the perimeter of Castle Hills, we provide a safer area around the city, and we end up coming up with a little bit of a ticket revenue as well. I also want to point out that the police department newly revitalized warrant program has been producing revenues of approximately $700,000 for the past 2 years, and with our police department in full force, we should be able to continue that for the years going forward.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory, would you like to expand?
When I ran for election 2 years ago, I pledged we'd find the money to implement over $1 million a year for street and maintenance repair. That money just doesn't fall out of the street, out of the sky. The approved income of 2014 was $5.6 million. We've had almost over a 15% increase in income to the city since I've been on the council to projected $6.7 million. This is due to hard work of the present council and some smart economic decisions that we have made. As I say, this money just isn't found under a rock. It has taken hard work to get this increase. You won't find that in too many other cities. You certainly won't find that in the federal government.
Ms. Pena?
I have nothing to add.
Frank?
You know, Mr. Douglas, what can I say? Smart decisions by this current council. I like that. Thank you.
Bruce? JR? Ms. Pena, what is the proper balance that should exist between the need for commercial development and the desire to maintain the city's residential tradition and atmosphere?
Well, that's a simple answer. That would be established by an updated comprehensive master plan.
Frank?
I agree. I think everybody up here pretty much agrees that that's where it has to start. And that comprehensive plan will demonstrate where some smart development should be where it is, what has to be done, and I think that's the next step. I went to a seminar not too long ago, and they basically said that get your ordinances straight first. Because once you do your master plan, it pretty much is set in stone, and you have confusion with your ordinances. Get your ordinance straight first, make sure you got everything together. Then when you build a master plan, you know what the different things, where they fit, and that's what we're doing.
Bruce?
I don't feel this is a standard black or white issue with one answer fits all and suitable for soundbite timeframe response. I once again point out the city's need for professionally prepared, fully vetted city master plan, which would address such strategic issues. We can see today with our existing challenges that our city has changed. The expansion of Northwest Military Highway, West Avenue, and Loop 410 have resulted in an expansion and realignment of commercial boundaries, reflecting the economic drivers which fuel commercial development. With density considerations and with adjoining neighborhood concerns, the process must be conducted in a uniform and consistent way, addressing all concerns while keeping our city positively looking forward. We are a strategically located residential community. Our city is of an age that some of our greatest resources lie in redevelopment of existing spaces. We must insist that this is done within an approved plan, which is consistent with applicable zoning and architectural standards. Our codes and our standards should be up to date. They should be concise and codified, allowing those to desire to invest in our city to move forward confidently in working with staff and our citizens.
Thank you. JR?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, sir. What is the proper balance that should exist between the need for commercial development and the desire to maintain the city's residential tradition and atmosphere?
I'm a first-generation Castle Hills resident, and I could tell you personally, I moved here because I like Castle Hills the way that it is. And I would venture to say that the majority of people live here because they like Castle Hills the way that it is. I personally don't see a reason to change it. That's not to say that we can't help the city and make the city a better place by polishing it. In my opinion, we don't need to change it, but we need to capitalize on the infrastructure that's already in place, the empty buildings, as I've said over and over again, and do what we can as opportunities present themselves.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory?
One thing we've seen in the last 2 years while I've been on council is that change is inevitable, especially with the growth of the oil industry further to the south. It's collapsed for the time being, but it'll come back. We have a moment in time right now to absolutely clarify what we want to do. We have to be very careful what we want to do, because once we do something grossly improper or disastrous, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. It will take this master plan. We've talked about it forever. I was the only one in the city who had a copy of the old master plan. I still have one if you want it. The new master plan has to be thoughtful, and we must adhere to it. It's very important. You don't come to a city and expect to leave 2 or 3 years from now. Most people, when they come to Castle Hills, they expect to live here until they're taken out. And they expect the city to grow and to be the city they love, not a city that doesn't know what it's doing and just developing for developing's sake. So, master plan is important for everybody, developers and the people who live here.
Thank you. Ms. Pena, would you like to expand on the question?
No.
Frank? Bruce?
I think we've all sort of agreed that the city needs a master plan. One difference in my approach is that I believe that it should be a professionally prepared master plan by a company that is experienced in doing master plans for similar cities, that will vet it, hold citizen hearings, and have all the input that it takes. That we can't really expect volunteers or even elected officials to put in the time and have the expertise to prepare this plan professionally.
JR? Mr. Gregory?
previous master plan, which is about 20 years old, was exceptionally well done by a lot of professional people we have living within the city. Throwing money to a professional organization to do it doesn't necessarily mean anything except you've thrown money at a professional organization. We have a lot of people in this city who are very intelligent, who know what to do, have a broad range of experiences. We've got everything from a former ambassador to the United Nations here to countless numbers of engineers. It will require local input to understand what's going on locally. I believe that that's who should be doing it, because they will hear the voices of their own community, be it wherever they live in the city. A large corporation may or may not take into consideration the wants or the desires of people who live in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank, this is a two-part question. The Castle Hills First Baptist Church property is for sale. As much as 22 acres could change hands, potentially representing the sale and development of the largest tract of land available in Castle Hills. What do you think is the best use of this property, and what would you, or how would you arrive at determining the best use?
Well, what I think in the final analysis won't matter, because I won't be stroking the check. What would I like to see there? I'd like to see something like the quarry. I'd like to see some more retail, some upscale retail. I'd like to see some, maybe two-level housing, condos or apartments or something like that, something that would fit into the area there. Again, it's already a commercial strip. The reality is, I've heard a lot of pros and cons. I hear that we may have additional, another church that wants to buy it, or a school or something like that. So we'll just have to wait and see what's there, and then see what would be presented. If we get a developer that's interested in doing something with that project, government business is a little difficult in trying to get things done sometimes. It moves at a slow pace. I can't sit down with Douglas, I can't sit down with 2 or 3, 4 people on council and say, hey, let's try to solve this solution. Because then we got to post a meeting, we got to do this, we got to do that, or we're going to, you're going to come up here and say that we're breaking the law. So it's not that easy, but I would like to see a mixed development there. It's big enough, it's on the way to Chavano Park, it's on the way out there, and I think, quite frankly, it would make that area, well, I think the quarry has a very nice situation over there.
Thank you. Bruce?
I believe that we could see a number of scenarios play out on the Baptist Church property. Number one, it could be another church or school could buy the property and use it primarily for the same use. Number two, a major developer would buy the property with a plan to redevelop its use, configurations to be an economic generator and an investment destination. Possible mixed-use configurations with multiple and varied commercial and residential components. And number three could be a piecemeal sale to various buyers and uses requiring multiple rezoning cases and use determinations. Number four is one that we haven't even considered yet, only limited by an investor or a developer's imagination and bankroll. I would not limit my thoughts at this point to a specific design. However, I personally would prefer a totally designed planned unit development, including mixed-use, retail, residential, and multifamily housing components to be presented by a well-funded, experienced group whose project would be reflective of Castle Hills' adopted master plan, which could also bring private development dollars to the table, which would benefit our city's street and drainage challenges in that area. I believe that any responsible redevelopment of this site would include the outlying parcels, would accomplish that goal of bringing dollars to the table for the city. In any scenario, planning efforts would be extensive and require the flexibility and cooperation and complete candor of everyone to be successful. Every decision that would be made would have to be made by all parties. Zoning, architectural review, and council would have to consider the benefit of the project for the entire city, with a focus on the location operation, and immediate neighborhood impact.
Thank you. JR?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The Castle Hills First Baptist Church property is for sale. As much as 22 acres could change hands, potentially representing the sale and development of the largest tract of land available in Castle Hills. What do you think is the best use of the property? And also, how would you arrive at determining the best use?
Thank you. As Mr. Paul said, it doesn't really matter what we want. It's more about the process. Analyzing this as an alderman, I would like to see what's best for the city, just opposed to what's best for the citizens. What do the citizens want? And I think as an alderman, we owe the city the responsibility of finding out and exploring all options and presenting those to the city and letting them provide us feedback so that we can better understand. Personally, I would like to maintain the balance that we have, and I think that's doable by providing a small retail space that has boutique shops that can provide us a high amount of sales tax revenue compared to their square footprint. That being said, not having huge stores that are providing a lot of traffic, but more small boutiques that are selling higher end goods that will provide us with revenue that can go towards street and drainage and make this place a better place to live and work for all of us.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory?
Well, first of all, it's the invisible hand of the market will determine who is looking at Castle Hills for anything. That's why we go back to the master plan. That's basic for input. So you can merge the developer who is looking to do something with the city with the ideas of what the citizens want. One thing is very important. Whoever comes in here, this is why I don't think it should be piecemeal, chopped up, and sold. You have new laws from the state legislature that say that if you have an improper drainage, if you have a development that's been improperly drainaged, not only the developer is liable, but the city is liable. So you have to have somebody with significantly deep pockets to put in a significantly large situation there who could build a drainage situation that wouldn't negatively impact downstream people who live. Because if they do, the city's on the hook as well as the developer. So I think that the best use will be a combination of what the marketplace says and what the master plan reflects the desires of the city.
Thank you. Ms. Pena?
Once again, I'll reiterate that we need an updated master plan. We need a plan in place for rezoning and how much of the property would be rezoned, not to include rezoning on South Winston. Commercial rezoning on Northwest Military Highway, and hopefully a planned unit development with upscale houses. Again, I have to say that. And definitely not multifamily housing. I don't believe that the citizens of Castle Hills are looking for us to sell the property or approve a property and rezone it to have multifamily housing in Castle Hills.
Thank you. Frank, would you like to expand on the question?
No, I think Douglas and Bruce both had some good points there, and multifamily means a multitude of things. So do I want just a whole bunch of blank apartments there? Of course not. But again, Bruce's idea of bringing people in, getting developers, but it all starts with a good master plan, no question about it. I think we've all said that a couple of times tonight. Thank you.
Bruce?
I'd like to go on record that if Embry Partners or a comparable developer wants to come in and spend $400 million in Castle Hills on the First Baptist Church property to recreate something such as the Quarry Market, not the big quarry, but the Quarry Village Market on the golf course, I would definitely support that.
JR?
Master plan.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory?
And here's to show you the danger of what happens when you don't have when you really don't know what's going on. Where Pape Dawson is right now, originally a few years ago, was proposed a, quote, luxury apartment complex of 2 or 3 or 4 stories tall. We never were really told, 700 square feet per apartment. The developer then comes in and says, we've got all our zoning things wrong. We shouldn't pay any attention to noise, and he went on to a laundry list of things. That almost got through, because immediately he went to zoning the next week, but fortunately zoning stopped it, simply because I think he was really way off his rocker. But that is an example. If you do not develop it properly, carefully, you live with the mistake forever. And that would have been a blister on the city of this city that we would never have been able to undo. Fortunately, it wasn't done.
Ms. Pena? No? Okay. At this point, we'll have closing remarks from everyone. Start with Mr. Gregory.
Thank you, everybody who showed up and who's watching this streaming. It's something I've wanted for the city for a long time, and this is one thing that Bruce and I agreed upon my last month when I was in office. We passed this. It wasn't exactly the way the ordinance was written, but at least it's a start. Being a member of the city council is a privilege, but it is also a duty. It is not a game. I have the fiduciary responsibility to bring the best I have for all decisions. As you know, I look at problems from a business point of view. Over the years, I have helped Castle Hills gather in over $8 million and save the city from at least $20 million in liabilities. We are a small town, and those numbers have had a positive benefit for everyone who lives and works here. If you look at every issue through a political prism, distortions occur. I look at issues from a business point of view, but every now and then I am reminded that there are always differing points of reference. This job is hard work. This May, I will have completed 6 full terms as your alderman. Everything I promised to do when I ran in 2014, I have done. Better roads, new money flowing into the city, all without any city services reduced or an increase in the property tax rate. The city is on a much sounder foundation than it was 2 years ago. With your support, I look forward to getting even more accomplished, all without political spin. Thank you.
Ms. Pena?
If elected, my responsibility will be to listen to the residents of Castle Hills with an open mind and an open door policy. I personally experienced a scenario on my street which I was very concerned about, and I was met by some of the city council members with indifference and aloofness. I was shocked. Luckily, there were 2 people on the council that gave me the respect to listen to what I and my neighbors wanted and assisted me with information on how to go about expressing my concerns with a required petition for the rezoning committee and appearing before city council. Had it not been for those 2 individuals, we would have a daycare center on the corner of Cremeria and Lemonwood right now. As your city council member, if elected, I plan to work for everyone in the city, not just my next door neighbor or my best friend. I am on nobody's party list, and I am nobody's girl. I am my own woman, and I will represent everyone to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Frank?
Well, again, in making decisions up here, it takes a certain amount of common sense. Unfortunately, common sense is not so common anymore in many cases. I look at all the projects when I come forth, whatever they are, I always look at them and start off as a bottle is half full. Now, water drains out or water fills up. And I try to approach it from that standpoint. And I always try to look at what would I do if I were there? What would I want? What would I expect? I look at things for the entire city, not for just one area. Because if we're going to be a city, we're going to be a city. My vision for this city is that in 10 to 15 years, as one person told me, we're not just a subdivision of San Antonio. And none of us want that. And how we move forward and how we continue to try to tackle problems, tackle our needs, tackle the different things, we need to do it together. We need to do it together. We need to use some common sense. I have some people in one area on one of the zoning cases that lived over here, just using examples. They wanted, they thought projects were good, but not in my neighborhood. But then they were the same people that went over this side over here, and they were all for it over there, where in fact the traffic over here, Exploration Station, was 10 times the amount of traffic that was going to be over here. So we got to look at this thing as what's best for the city, not just what's in my backyard. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce?
First and foremost, thank you so much for coming tonight and listening to us talk. You know, you have two citizens sitting in front of you who've sat up here before. We both have proven track records. We have ideas that many times run in the same direction and sometimes run in different directions about the direction of our city. But let me assure you that both of us are sincerely committed to doing the best we can do for each and every citizen in this city and for our city in general. We do disagree on one major important issue that I can think of, and that is that I truly believe we must remain a part of the greater metropolitan public transportation system, VIA, knowing that any other path would diminish our community's image of progression as a centrally located member of our community and compromise our commitment to our own citizens. We will, all of us, will strive to keep our citizens safe and will try to promote the well-beings of our lifestyles. We will continue to act with compassion, ensuring that our community continues to strive to meet the needs of all of our citizens. I will continue to look forward with optimism and understanding that our city is neither broke nor broken, and continue to offer our citizens a well-run, safe, and inclusive city with vital energy, committed always to face our challenges with respect, with dignity for all, and a well-balanced focus on progress for our future. I want to thank you so much for your support of me in the past in my various elections and in my service to this city. And from the bottom of my heart, with humility and respect, I ask that you vote for me once again and return me to city government.
Thank you. JR?
Mr. Bello, Mr. Olson, thank you. I'd like to thank the City of Castle Hills for hosting this. Thank you for the people that are watching. It shows that you care, and most importantly, the people that are here, that shows that you really do care. There's three things that I want you to remember when you leave here tonight. I'm committed to investing in infrastructure. I'm committed to strategic economic development. And I'm committed to making Castle Hills better, but keeping it the same charm that we know and love. If there's any questions that I didn't answer, I encourage you to reach out to me so that I can talk to you on a one-on-one basis and I can learn from what you have to say and I can take your word and run with it. As a matter of fact, I'd like to make sure that y'all have my number. My personal cell phone number is 210-559-5940, and I urge you to call me and let me know and talk to me, because this isn't about me. This is about the city. Thank you. Have a good night. I'll see you at the polls.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to thank the candidates for coming. Thank you for participating. I'd like to thank my esteemed partner here, Mr. Peter Vela. And thank you, the citizens, for coming tonight. Like they said, it definitely shows y'all have a concern for your city, and that's why we're a part of Castle Hills. So thank you all for coming, and I appreciate it. Have a good evening.